But before we're talking again about the railroads, when you were in the woods, you were most of the time at the same village with the same family, or you had to go every week or every month to another place?
We didn't stay with the family, we stayed in the woods.
But when you said that you stayed in the barn or outside the houses...
Well, it all depends. Sometimes we stay 2 days, 3 days, whoever...
Not more than that?
No, we were afraid to stay more than that because somebody sees us. If somebody reports us or somebody sees us, or we didn't go in with their permission, we went in without their permission. Not all the Gentile people wanted to accept us. Actually, just the opposite. They didn't want us. They wouldn't let us in.
Not even one let you in. Let's say his barn for the winter.
Well, we didn't ask. We just went in, and just because they knew my father for many years, because we had a business there, and he dealt with them, so they had a little, even though they had a little respect for him, so they didn't say anything. But there are some of them would report us. They didn't, but it was reported. There was a lot of people that.
But others would give you something to eat, and that's it.
Yeah, they give you something to eat, or sometimes they wouldn't give you anything to eat either. So, you know, they just, you used to go into the barn, when they used to give the potatoes to the pigs. If you happened to be in the barn, so you used to take a couple of potatoes from them. And, but not everybody was generous. And
usually you went to ask for food, or your father?
My father, not I. No, I didn't. First of all, he used to make a place for me so that I can be safe, and then he was safe, whatever. And then he used to go, because he knew the people, and it was cold, it was winter, and he used to go and he used to get a piece of bread or some potatoes.
And in the woods, you had a kind of shelter in the ground?
In the woods, no, we didn't have any shelter in the ground. We had shelter above the ground.
And when it was snowing?
So it was snowing. The only time we had shelter in the ground, it was almost the end of the war, that somebody built in a hill, in a mountain. He built like a house, and we were there, but not for very long.
This time we're talking about 43. You were alone with your father, only the two of you.
No. There was other people there.
All the time you were a group?
Yes, all the time a group. We were never by ourselves. It was always a group. It was this cousin of my father's with the 3 children. One died already, and one lives in Haifa, and one lives not in Tel Aviv, but she lives near the University of
Bar Ilan?
Yeah.
Okay, but can you say that paradoxically the snow, or I don't know, the weather helped your injuries?
The weather helped my injuries?
Maybe because it's unbelievable how you could still going with your arm hanging like that, and you were recuperating. So something helped you. I don't know what.
Me either. It's a miracle. it's a miracle. This part of flesh, now this is okay because it's after surgery. Then I came to the States, this doctor did the surgery. This part of flesh was hanging like that, was laying like that, was like an open, like you take a piece of material and you throw it like this, in like that, in pieces like that. It was explosive.
And in the winter, it was maybe less infected or something like that.
It was not infected. The reason why it was not infected because I just said before that I had worms crawling, and those worms ate up the bacteria, and that's why I didn't get infected. And each time they ate, I jumped because it just like with pins was sticking in me. Okay, and this was my luck, and I didn't even know about it. That those worms helped me. I had a woman, in the back that I had, it was a dip. It was like, so she had to take it with a stick and take the worms out because they were eating me. And what they were eating is the bacteria. Because they ate the bacteria, I didn't get infected. That was my luck. But it's many times I ask myself, how could that happen?
And the two last bullets didn't cause any more problems.
You mean here? No, I didn't have any.
Only scratches.
No, this went in one side and came out here, and this just went through. I still have a mark here. Top. That didn't. But this one had, and I had it here also. One here, and one was here, and one was here. I had the first time I had 3 bullets, which this was a very big one. I thought that the bone but the bone was not touched. In the second time I had 2 bullets. That was later, a few months later. That was the end of it, because after that we were a little bit freer. We were not hunted so much. We could go into Gentiles' homes, and they accepted us.
At that time, you were hungry?
I was hungry. I never thought about food. We didn't think about food because we got what we got. If we had a piece of bread, we ate just a little bit. The other little bit we had to save it for the other day or for later on.
But when someone is hungry, usually the only thing he can think about is food.
I don't know, what was I thinking? I was thinking for survival, not about food, to survive. I don't think if I was thinking about anything because I didn't, you were in such a stage that you don't know what to think.
Do you remember talks with your father, or both of you were too exhausted for that?
We didn't have.
Maybe that he told you about his family, about the past, about.
No, we didn't talk. No, we didn't talk about the past. We just, I think, tried to survive. That's all, just to survive. I don't know if we tried to shall I say, amuse ourselves, to forget our problems, to talk about good things so we wouldn't think about our bad things, or what will happen or what will not happen.
And all that time your father was never ill?
No.
During the time in the woods?
No, it's funny, my father was asthmatic. He had very bad asthma. And while we were in the woods, never complained. We were never sick. We never had a cold, even though we didn't have any clothes. We were in good health. Of all the things.
And you said that you were always a part of a group, so did you have someone around your age there?
No. There was a woman that lives in, I don't know if she's still alive. She lives in Kfar Saba. She was much older. She was my sister's age, my older sister's age. And myself, we were two women, two girls. And then it was men, they were married, but they lost a family.
And you said that your father's cousin was with 3 children. They were younger than you?
The children, yes, yeah. But that was afterwards. See, we were in, that's from, I'm talking from the beginning, the group of people that I was in. Later on, we were in a, I don't remember how we got there. We were in a bunker that somebody built it in a mountain, which was very, very good. And we stayed there. There was this woman that she lives in Kfar Saba, and myself, my father's a cousin, and 2 strangers, but from the same town. I think so. That's when we were there.
And the children of your father's cousin, no?
No, those we met. Those we met before. That was before.
Ah, it was another cousin?
Yeah, that was in the same country, but in a different
cousin.
time.
Yeah, but another cousin, not the one with the children.
Right. My father's cousin. In the same, that was the same time. We were there in.
You were talking
in
about
the
the railroads.
The railroad.
The railroads were before the bunker or after?
After. The railroad was before the bunker. The railroad was before the bunker. We passed the railroad, and we stayed with some Seventh-day Adventists. You know who they are? They are people that they keep the Sabbath. And they were very, very good to the Jews. And there we met up different kind of people from different cities. And there we went into the bunkers that some of the people built it. And then we stayed there for a little while. And I had my sister's sister-in-law that I met up with her. And in fact, she lives in Kfar Saba here with the child. And we were talking about it, and she says to me, she survived by telling the fortune to the people. And people used to give her food. Her husband was in...
During the war,
during the war, in the woods. And her husband was in Russia. And she was with this little boy, and she used to tell the fortune. And people gave her food and protected her. And I tell her...
What can you tell to people who are staying, hiding in the woods?
She wasn't telling to the Jewish people. She was telling to the Goyim, to the Gentile people. And they gave her, they paid her for it. And that's for she survived. She ate. So her name was Chaya, or something like that. And I told her, I say, tell me my fortune. She says, oh, you don't believe in that. It's nothing. You don't believe in it. I says, tell me. So she opens up the cards. And when she opens up the cards, she says, oh, you better get out of the bunker. Because we were at that time in the bunker. You better get out of the bunker. And so I was, like taken by it. And then she kept on telling me. And I came over to my father and I says, Papa, we have to get out of the bunker. He says, well, you believe that garbage. I says, Papa, we're getting out of the bunker. So I took him by his hand and I schlepped him out of the bunker. Okay? A day later, they raided that bunker. The Ukraine raided that bunker. They were looking for, and we found out from the peasant people there that lived there. So you're talking about cards, I don't believe in it either, but so she was telling that, and she survived from telling cards. She was my sister-in-law.
So you went out of the bunker, only you and your father, or also
Not all of them, no, all of them. If we went out, all of them went out. All of us went out, and we went
went where?
We went to a village. By then, it was already quiet down. The Germans were losing already, and they were going back, and it was already, the partisans were already free.
It was strong winter at that time, or already?
That was the end of the war. Not the end of the war. That was in 19. That was in
the beginning of 44.
Beginning of 44. That was the beginning, and then we went into.
Rovno was liberated in February 44. So it was around that time?
Yeah, we were already, then we got into the city of Stanze Rachvalovke. We were there, and there they started bombing. They bombed day and night. So we went back to Kiev.
Why did they bomb there?
There
was a factory there or something important?
They were bombing the railroads, because the railroads is like the Germans, when they retrieved it, once they bomb it, if the Russians continue, they're going after them, they'll have to repair the railroads. So we'll slow them down and we'll give them a chance to recuperate.
So the Germans bombed?
Bombed, of course. So then we went back to Russia. One from the group, our group was around, I don't remember how many, 20, 30 people, something like that. And we decided to go to...
you said Kiev.
To Kiev.
Kiev is inside
Russia.
Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine. So we went to Kiev. So we got to Kiev. Kiev was bombed.
But at that time, you arrived as liberated people already.
Well, the war was still going on.
Yes, but you didn't have to hide there.
No, we had to hide from the bombs.
But not from the population.
No, not from the public. No, not from the public. So we went into Kiev, and the reason that we went to Kiev is that there was a man from our group that he said that he has a relative in Kiev, and if we go there, we might get shelter, or to eat, or to do something. So we got a group of, I don't remember exactly how many people, and we finally got on a railroad, and we went back. We had to go back, because to stay there it was very dangerous. And one of the soldiers, because it was bombing, the bombs were falling. And one of the soldiers, the Russian soldiers, I asked him, what shall you do like that? He says, go out in the field, lay down and look up the sky. If the bomb is falling on you, close your eyes and say your prayer.
Shema Israel.
That's right. And he says, nothing you can do about it. So we decided to go back to Russia. So we went to Kiev. We wind up in I don't know how we wind up there, I really don't. In one room, broken, winter, cold, nothing, no place to cook, no place to eat, nothing to eat. What shall I tell you? No clothes, no, I don't know what to tell you. So, but this man that suggested we should go to Kiev, he was a fortune teller.
Also.
Yeah. So anyhow, he had somebody, he knew somebody in Kiev. So first of all, we stayed on the steps for 3 or 4 nights. And finally, this woman, this friend, says, you can't stay here because they're going to arrest you. You have to find a place. So we found was one room, all broken up. And we stayed there. Well, you can't stay there. It's no bed, and you don't have anything to eat, and so. But before I left, I met up with my sister-in-law, my sister's sister-in-law, and she gave me 100 ruble. And she says, I don't want to take it because this is sister-in-law that she told me, the fortune teller. So I says, you need it, you have a child. And she said, no, take it. That 100 ruble brought me a piece of bread no bigger than this cassette. So I had to share it, my father and I, with this piece of bread. So finally, they had something to eat. We stayed there, and then the man was fortune teller, so he can earn some money, no? So, but we were together, all in one room. We slept on the floor, and no windows, and it was cold. Mind you, when I went to get water, you had to stay in line, because from the bombing from Kiev, all the places were broken up. So we stayed to get some water. By the time you came back, your clothes was frozen, like a mirror. Your whole clothes was like a mirror, all frozen. And so we stayed there for a little while. Then across the street from us, it was, they call Bronyotankovi Zavod. It's a factory that they make tanks. And they happened to be the manager of that factory was a Jew. And for some reason or other, I don't know how we got connected with him. And he felt sorry for us. And he told us that we can go into that kitchen there and get food. So we used to go with buckets and get the soup that they made, because they themselves didn't have anything. And that was for officers, I want you to know, not for the regular soldiers. And we used to bring a bucket of this, and they had to use the oil, and that oil did not agree with our body, so we all got so sick. We got diarrhea from it. And finally he got us a place in about 60 kilometers from Kiev. So one time a truck came, because there used to be a farm. I don't know if you know the system, how it works in the Russian, that each factory has their own farm, and that farm produces the food for that factory that the people work there. It's a collective, a kolkhoz. So we were sent to that factory, to that kolkhoz, to work there. We got there, was nothing there, because the Germans were there, and they destroyed everything, just destroyed everything. So we had to repair the house, and we had rooms. We slept like 4 or 5 people, in one room. And then they had, in the daytime, we went out, but you couldn't work the fields because the fields are so huge. You had to, they sent a tractor, the tractor that used to turn the ground over to make things plant, but it was winter and it didn't work, and it was too much of a, it didn't work because the Russian system doesn't work because they're not connected. So anyhow, we had a kitchen, and the products that they had, we just cooked it, and everybody got something to eat. And we stayed there for a little while, for I would think around 6-7 months. And then they're beginning to ask us for passports, and we didn't have anything. We didn't know, so they were planning to take us as being spies. So we had to get out of there. So we all packed up and we left. And on our way back, we waited. We couldn't get on a train because the trains were loaded with ammunition. It took us a long time till we got civilization. So we got to a city, I don't remember, I've forgotten already where it was, Stancja Rachbalevke or something like that. And we got into a house that was halfway broken. It was just 2 rooms. In the kitchen, it was broken from bombing. So we used to cook outside till somebody came, a friend of ours from the same town. He came from Kiev, and he was wounded, so he couldn't work very well. So with his hands, he barely made us a plita, whatever you call it, so we can cook on it. And we stayed there for a little while, and then we were talking about we had to get out of there, because if we don't get out of there, we might get stuck in Russia. So we got some information, and we paid some money and so forth and so on, and we got back into Poland, which it's Russia now, but it was Poland then. And from there, we got into the DP camps.
In Germany?
We were in Austria. And from there...
You discussed the future with your father?
Yeah, we all...
He said, let's go to the States. You said, okay, or you said something else.
But
there was a discussion about it?
Of course. We didn't think of going to the States, because my father had 3 brothers in the States and 2 sisters. But the 2 sisters died, so he knew about it. But the 3 brothers, we didn't have any address or anything like that to contact them. So we were to go to Israel. Israel at that time was no Israel. So we were in a DP camp. So in the DP camp, there was a man that he was from the UNRWA that was working there, and I got the names because I didn't know my father's brothers' names, and so he could find out. So he found it out, and I also find out my mother had a brother and 2 sisters in New York, and but
so a lot of family.
Yeah, so we had. So I gave it in the paper, but my uncle. I didn't know my mother's sisters' names because they were married, but my mother's brother's name is the same name as my mother's, right? So I gave it in, and then he has changed his name. So somebody, a friend of his, of my uncle, that saw in the paper the name, and he called my uncle, and he says, you know, somebody's looking for you. I was looking for one name, and he's a different name. So then he knew my father's brothers in Washington. My father's family lived in Washington. My mother's family lived in New York. So they contact, and then my uncle from Washington got through the hires and things like that, and he sent us papers, and so we got sponsored.
When did you come to America?
I came in 1946.
So you didn't spend a long time in the DP camp?
No. In 1945, no, I didn't spend a long time in DP camp. They were closing it up. They didn't want people to stay there. Actually, they put pressure on people to get out of there because there was just a temporary thing. Either you go back home where you come from, or you go to a relative. Israel, they couldn't get in because
How was it for you, America, for the first time?
How was it?
Big trauma? Only a shock?
I don't know. To me, is a country. It's
okay. When you arrived, it wasn't a homeland, but you are 18 years old, with injuries, with no language,
nobody.
But many relatives.
But my relatives were not very. They didn't do it for love. They did it for obligation. It's a difference between obligation and for love. My uncle was not a young man. He was older. My uncle and my aunt was older people. They already had.
From your mother's side?
From my father's side. They already had grandchildren almost my age. So, although my uncle was a businessman, he left Europe when my father was a little boy, so he hardly knew my father.
And your father wasn't a youngster either at that time.
Yeah, but my father was the youngster in the family.
Yeah, but he wasn't. He wasn't young enough to begin a new career.
No. He was in his 60s, and so it's. When I came, what my aunt told me, she says, "You had it bad. You didn't have it so bad. We couldn't get sugar here, and we couldn't get this here, and we couldn't get this here." So,
before you arrived, did you have the fantasy that because all the difficult stuff you were through during the war,
that I'm entitled to?
They'll put red carpet and
no, I didn't have
treat you very nice.
No, I didn't have the fantasy of that. No, by all means not. I was looking for that. I was looking for something that I missed. I was looking for something that I lost, and I didn't find it.
And not even, I understand, not even empathy. Not to say something more than that.
That's what I was looking for. It was very difficult.
And you stayed in New York or in Washington?
No, in Washington. My people lived in, my father's family lived in Washington.
He had 3 brothers at that time, and I suppose
he had 3
also
brothers.
And also nephews or nieces from his late sisters.
Yeah,
also in Washington?
Yes, they all lived in Washington. They were very famous people, lawyers and very famous people.
So they could support you, both of you?
No.
Okay, I'll ask again.
Some of them didn't even come to see me.
Okay, so they could support you, but they didn't. So you had now to provide for both of you?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I worked.
As?
I went, my father went to work in a synagogue, and after I learned a little bit the language, I went to work in I worked in a factory where I didn't have to use the language.
But the operation was immediately when you arrived.
That was done. My father had brothers, and he had stepbrothers there. He had 3 stepbrothers. He had 1 stepbrother, 2 stepbrothers.
Three brothers, 2 late sisters, and another 3
stepbrothers.
Half brothers.
Stepbrothers. Their name is Sugar. He remembered my father as a child from home. And fact, when my father was a young man, before he was getting married, that's what I heard, that he had a ticket to come to United States. But he didn't want to come to United States because he was getting married. So he took this ticket and gave it to his stepbrother. That's not a half a brother or nothing, a stepbrother. His name is Sugar, was Sugar. So when we came to United States, he was very good to us. I think they were much better to us than my father's own brothers. So he had
he arranged the operation for you?
He had a son. Was it a son? A son-in-law. A son-in-law. That his son-in-law is a doctor. So he talked to his son-in-law, but his son-in-law is not a surgeon. He was a doctor. There are doctors, there are surgeons. This doctor had a friend, a Goyish friend, a surgeon, that they got together, and he, the surgeon, did the surgery on me.
But now you went to work in a factory because they didn't need the language there.
That's right.
But you still had problems with your hand.
That's
you couldn't work so quickly.
Exactly. Because I couldn't use my hand. My hand was like this all the time. I couldn't straighten it out. So that doctor, I was thinking of his name. He did the surgery on me, and he says that I need another surgery. But another surgery, that means to take flesh from somebody else and fill it in so it would look nicer. But that, he doesn't do it, somebody else would have to do it, and that would cost money, and I didn't have any money. So I left it like that. But a person that no relation to me whatsoever, Dr. Davito, I'll never forget his name, did that.
So you worked in a factory. What kind of a factory?
Chocolates. That my cousin arranged it for me. She was very good because she knew a lot of people. She was born there. So I worked there. And then later on, the factory closed for some reason or other, I don't know. And I was going to school to learn the language. And
you began to meet people in the Jewish community?
In the Jewish community, yes. Friends that also went through the war. So it was a group of people that I used to associate with. And till I learned the language a little bit to speak. Then I went to school in the nighttime and worked in the daytime. They had in the nighttime schools. And I went to school in the nighttime and learned and worked in the daytime. And then I learned various skills, you know, professional things. So I could work as a professional, not just I did all kind of work. I worked in a restaurant, I worked as a, all kind of things. And I lived with my father. We had an apartment. And my father worked in a synagogue.
Your father stayed religious?
Yes.
And you at that time?
Of course. And we stayed with our people in the States for about 6 months. And then we rent an apartment.
6 months. 6 months with the relatives and then your apartment?
Then we rent an apartment.
When did you get married?
When I got married. I got married in 1952? You don't know. Let me think. I got to the United States in
1946, you said.
46. 52.
Your husband was also from Poland?
No, my husband came from, he was born in the States, but his parents were born in the States. His grandmother was born in Poland.
And wasn't it obvious that you are looking for someone with the same past as you had? Someone who went through the war and lost his family?
Why?
And I don't know, it looks natural, no?
No, why? No. Who wants to sit together and cry? To support each other's wounds? To feel sorry for each other? Well, everybody's to his own taste.
You went for a Native American. Native, I mean, who was born in
my husband had his own
America.
problems. Everybody has his problems. You take an American-born people don't have any problems, especially United States that they had for Jewish people wasn't so. People think it was so good for the Jews. Not just recently it's good, but years ago it was not so good for the Jews. The Jews was also persecuted. It's just now that it's, but...
So you got married in 52. Your father was still alive?
Yeah. My father was alive till both of my children were born. He was alive.
So you had 2 daughters in America, all the time in Washington?
No, we lived in Silver Spring, Maryland. That's suburbs of the city, around.
Of
People don't live in
Washington, D.C.
Washington. Yeah, people don't live now in Washington. Now people usually live in suburbs.
The outskirts
Outskirts,
of
yeah.
Of
No,
D.C.
we lived, then we lived in Virginia also once upon a time because my husband got a job there. And so we had to move. But then later on when the children got older and we want them to go to the Hebrew Academy, so we moved back to Washington.
And your language with your husband was only English?
Yeah,
he didn't know Yiddish?
He thought, but he didn't.
He didn't.
You could speak to him, but he answered in English.
He understood Yiddish,
Yeah.
but
Because his grandmother
didn't
used to
speak.
talk to him in Yiddish, and he answered her in English. But he's...
So you were forced to learn English.
Who,
You-
I?
Yeah, you had no other option.
No, I had to...
And with your daughters, you also spoke only English.
yeah,
So only with your father you spoke Yiddish?
Yiddish, yes. No, my children speak Hebrew. They know how to speak Hebrew.
Yeah, but at that time you didn't know how.
No,
to.
I don't know how to speak Hebrew. But they speak Hebrew. My older daughter that lives in the States speaks Hebrew very well. They went to a private school, to yeshiva.
So you had, let's say, a relatively comfortable life in America?
Well, it so depends. If you you always have a comfortable life. It all depends what you're comparing. If you compare to up, you don't. If you compare to bottom, you do. Whatever you compare to.
But there was a time that you saw America as your country, or you felt a stranger all the time?
As my country, I didn't feel as a stranger, but I didn't feel like it's my country.
You didn't feel American?
It's a country. I don't own it.
Okay, but
I could live the rest of my life and not own it. But I
yeah,
wouldn't-
but here we feel that it's our country
that's the
for better and for worse.
that's a different.
Mostly for worse,
yeah.
but we feel that it's
Well,
our country.
That's the only thing. But I wouldn't. If I wouldn't have anything to compare to, United States is a country.
Yeah, but it's like Poland was, because you said that as a child you didn't feel Polish, and Poland wasn't your country.
No.
So America is the same.
Right. But I wouldn't. Now, even my husband was born in the United States. He didn't feel like that's his country. He was born. He served in the army. He got educated there. He worked there. He didn't feel like it's his country.
And you talked about coming to Israel?
With my husband? Of course. We wanted to come to Israel a long time ago. After we got married, a little while after we got married. But he couldn't get a job here. So it's no use to come here if you don't have a job. Because the country was, first of all, the country was not, I wouldn't say civilized, I would say rich to a point.
Too developed at that time, because it was only the beginning of
Right.
the state.
Even afterwards, it was not developed that he could get a job. I mean, we cannot compare Israel to United States after all. So to come here to struggle, I mean, it's not fair. So when he did promise a job, which was not materialized, so we decided to come, but the job didn't come through.
When was it?
It was in 1978? 1978.
After both your daughters graduated in America.
Right. My older daughter was going to college at that time. 78, right. So it was a job promised that it didn't materialize after. Well, but we already sold our house and we got ready. We came here, we waited, and nothing happened. We're not going to go back.
In 78, Israel was already a
Yeah.
civilized, a relatively civilized country.
Right. So we just remained here.
And you came with your daughters or alone?
No, with one daughter was here already. She came here before. And one daughter was going to university in the United States.
And then she stayed?
Yeah, she doesn't like it here. My older daughter doesn't like it here.
The younger came here?
Yes, the younger one likes it here. My older one doesn't like it.
So you knew when you came that she's going to stay there?
Yeah, of course.
And now you have 6 or 7 grandchildren?
7. My older daughter has 4, and my younger daughter has 3.
And you live here almost 30 years?
No, not quite. We came here in
78, you said?
1970.
In 2 years?
1979. 1979. Yeah. It's not too far. What's the difference? A year more, a year less, it doesn't make a difference.
Almost 30 years. And here you feel it's your country or not yet?
Of course. Otherwise we wouldn't move. Not everything is perfect, but...
Okay, one last sentence before we finish. Is there anything you want to say?
What I want to say? Well, I hope we don't have to go through the same thing again.
Okay, thank you very much.
What you want me to say? This is my grandfather. His name is Hillel. It's my father's father. Anything else? My sisters, 2 older sisters of mine. The one that's sitting, her name is Taibel, and the one that's standing up is Sarah. That's my father in the DP camp.
Where?
In Austria.
Where is he in the picture?
On the left, first left.
The first on the right.
Oh, it's the right, first right.
Yeah.
With the like that. Okay.
What was his
first
name?
right. Shimon.
When you...
עכשיו?
Yeah.
The 3 women, they live in Israel. They are from Osove. They were with me during the war in the woods.
And you are?
And I am on the right, first
on the right.
First of the right.
This is immediately after the war?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is I on the. I was about 18 years of age in United States.
Yes.
The bottom picture is myself and my husband when we got married. And that was, I don't remember what day it was. This is a picture of myself and my husband and my 2 daughters on my daughter's graduation. And my husband Larry and Shari and Leah. Leah is my older daughter. Shari is the younger one.
But it was his birthday. I see the cake.
That's right.
Okay.
That's my husband and his children and his grandchildren. That is the last birthday party. And after that he died.